Have you ever felt trapped by your circumstances? Like your life was happening to you rather than through you? I want to do a small experiment with all of you today. After I say go, for the next 30 seconds, I want you to smile the biggest smile you've ever smiled in your whole life. Ready? Go. Dr. Dan, I know you can smile bigger than that. Keep going. Everyone in this room is maybe at a 3. You've got to get higher than that. I can see it. You've got to go more, even more, even more. The biggest smile you've ever smiled in your whole life does not look like that. It's bigger. It's in your whole body. Come on, you can do it. Okay, thank you. Show of hands. Who feels happier than they did 30 seconds ago? You've just witnessed something fundamentally transformational. You are way more in control of how you feel than you ever thought possible. When we form a smile, even a forced one, our brain releases the neurochemicals associated with positive feelings. Unconsciously, you've just shifted your emotional state. But sometimes it feels like our emotions control us, that reality shapes us, and our words just describe the things that happen in front of us. It feels like you're a passenger in your own life. Today, I want to challenge that assumption with 3 questions that have the possibility of changing everything you know to be true. In the words of Rollo May, the quality of our life is not determined by the things that happen to us, but by the choices that we make in the space between stimulus and response. Question 1, do you control your emotions, or do your emotions control you? Most of us think that our emotions work something like this. There's a stimulus, something happens. Then whatever happens creates an emotion, and that emotion then results in some kind of behavior. But here's what the neuroscience says. The chemical cascade that happens in our bodies, the neurochemicals that flood our brains, they're done in about 90 seconds. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, a Harvard-educated neuroanatomist, experienced this during her own stroke recovery. In her book, My Stroke of Insight, she says that we don't have to be consumed by our emotions. We can simply be observers to them once that 90-second chemical impulse is done. But some of us, most of us in fact, feel like our emotions can last for hours, days, or even weeks. How is it that a single criticism can eat at us for an entire week? An embarrassing moment turns into months of replaying it over and over and over again. I experienced the same thing. At the end of my school career, during my A-levels in England, I was predicted straight A's across the board. I did not achieve straight A's across the board. And when I told my older cousin this, he called me a disappointment. He said that I wasn't good enough, and that stung. It hit way harder than I thought it would. But although the initial sting was automatic, I chose to carry those feelings for years afterwards. This is what I call emotional choice. The understanding that this is not about suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding that after those initial 90 seconds, you have a choice about how you interpret the rest of your time. You can choose to simply let that emotion go. If we're able to make these drastic changes in terms of how we view our own emotions, that we can choose to have them or let them go, what does that mean for the cause of our emotions, the stimuli, the reality in which we live? Question 2, Do you control your reality, or are you beholden to one that already exists? The idea that fundamentally changed how I view reality is an ancient parable, and I want to share it with you today. Some blind men encounter an elephant, and the first one says, after touching the elephant's trunk, an elephant is like a snake. And the second one, after touching the elephant's leg, says, nah, an elephant is like a tree. And the third one, after touching the elephant's ear, says, you're both wrong. An elephant is like a fan. These men's experience were valid and real, but beautifully, completely incomplete. They saw one tiny piece of the puzzle, but had misinterpreted it for the entire whole. And we do this in life. We assume that because we have one tiny version of what we think is real, we know what the full picture looks like, but we don't. The neuroscience confirms this. Our brain receives 11 million bits of information per second, but can only consciously process 50. That means that at any given moment, we're only cognitively able to process 0.0005% of the information that we have around us. The reason that we interpret some of this and not all of this is because of a process within the brain called the reticular activating system. Its sole job is to take the expansive amount of information that we have at our disposal and filter out only the bits that are relevant to us. But how does it know which bits are relevant to us? It filters based on our beliefs about what we think is true, and it filters out everything else. I want you to think about a time that you were thinking about buying a car. Let's say you wanted to buy a red car. The next day, after you had this thought about buying your new red car, you start to see them everywhere. These cars didn't magically appear out of the ground. They were always there, but your brain never thought they were relevant to you up until right now. Your brain is filtering out evidence that exists right now. This happens with everything. If you believe that the world is dangerous, your brain will notice every conceivable threat. But if you believe that the world is safe, you'll see all of the evidence of safety. If you believe that you're inadequate, your brain will notice every single criticism and ignore every compliment. If you believe that opportunity is scarce, you will see every single obstacle and miss the possibilities. The illuminating truth behind this is that if we change our beliefs, you change what you experience as real. If you're able to see the difference in your reality through what you believe, you can now start to see things that never previously existed. You are not shaped by your reality, you are actively creating it through your beliefs. And this leads us to question 3, the single most powerful tool in our arsenal when it comes to reshaping our emotions and our reality, our language. Question 3, do your words create your reality? Think about these phrases. I'm trying to get better. I need to work on my confidence, and I hope things will improve. Well, on the surface, these seem positive, aspirational, transformational even, but when you look a little bit closer, trying is an interesting word. It presupposes that the thing is inherently hard or difficult, that success is unlikely, and that effort alone is sufficient. You've given yourself a way out before you've even attempted. Needing to work on your confidence feels pragmatic, proactive, but you're not saying that you are more confident. You're just addressing the fact that you aren't currently. You only work on things that are broken. So you're calling yourself broken. And hope is the most subtle one of all of these. It sounds optimistic, but in reality, it's passive. When you say you hope to improve, what you're really saying is, I don't really want to change. I hope life kind of comes in and gets involved and does the work for me. I used to do this. I used to say, I'm not good enough. And what I had to realize was every time I said this, I was reinforcing that belief. The neuroscience and studies in cognitive linguistics prove this. The words we use, the language we choose, strengthens neural pathways in our brain. That means every time that I told myself I wasn't good enough, what I was doing was strengthening the neural pathway associated with that belief. I was making it easier and easier and easier for me to believe that that was true. The big realization for me came when I looked at the difference between these two phrases. I am worthless versus I'm experiencing feelings of inadequacy. One of them is permanent. It's an intrinsic characteristic of my identity. The other is a fleeting thought. If I focused on this permanent characteristic that I was worthless, I could never change. It would be impossible for me to be anyone different. I would continually be worthless. So I started experimenting. Instead of saying, I'm a failure, I said, I'm learning from this experience. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I said, I'm developing my abilities. And this wasn't positive affirmations or positive thinking. It was a more accurate description of what was happening. But my brain had no idea that as soon as I started to say these things, everything would change. Your words don't shape your reality. They actively create it. And this realization, the interconnectedness of all of these choices, was the moment that my life began to change. These three questions, I realized, were inherently choices that I could make that were interconnected. Your emotional choices influence your perceived reality. The reality you focus on creates the language that you use. The language that you use reinforces those emotional patterns. You have a choice in how you feel. You are not beholden to any of these things. You can choose. There's a quote by Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, psychiatrist, that sums this up beautifully. He says that everything can be taken away from you except your freedom to choose your attitude in any given circumstance. This whole idea was made so clear to me during a conversation with my mentor, where he asked me, whose voice is that in your head saying that you aren't good enough? And the sobering realization was, it was mine. I was telling myself this story. I'd become the author of my own limitation story by internalizing all of the criticisms and the comments that people had made over the years. But I realized if I could tell myself that story, I could tell myself a different one. And that story would change my emotions. It would change how I perceived reality. And it would change the future expectations I had of everything that came next. Those three questions changed my life. And I want to offer you a practice with three separate ideas that hopefully will allow you to experience the same change that I did. The first is the 90-second rule. After an emotion happens, take 90 seconds. Give yourself that opportunity. Feel your feelings. But after that 90 seconds is done, you can choose whether that feeling continues. The second is the reality check. When you have a particularly difficult situation arise, ask yourself, how else could I interpret this? How would someone else respond to this? What meaning am I missing here? And finally, the language audit. Be really mindful of your language, especially phrases that start with I am. Think, does this allow me to grow? Does this open up possibilities for me? The biology says you've got 90 seconds to react. After that, it's belief, and belief is a choice. Your story is not fixed. It's waiting for you to choose how it unfolds. Thank you.